Have you ever wondered why people who once clamored for your time now fall silent the moment you retreat? Why the same smiles that brightened your path suddenly flicker when your presence is no longer guaranteed? Beneath that unsettling hush lies a law older than memory itself. Familiarity breeds complacency, and scarcity electrifies desire. Yet we drift through our lives offering endless accessibility, surrendering attention like loose change, never pausing to ask what that generosity truly costs. Imagine for a breath withdrawing to the edge of the room. Feel the eyes that once glanced past you snap into focus, tracing your silhouette with fresh intensity. Like an ember denied oxygen, your absence pulls air from every corner, setting dormant intrigue ablaze. Dale Carnegie taught that even a single smile can tilt the balance of human connection. Carl Jung whispers a darker corollary that withholding the smile can magnify its power 1,000-fold. Which force do you wield today? But here is the heresy. The world will label your distance selfish, unnatural, even cruel. Do not flinch. Those protests reveal the hidden nerve you have struck, the silent agreement everyone unconsciously signed, an agreement that you must always be reachable, pliable, obedient to the tug of every request. Shatter that covenant, and you will watch relationships rearrange themselves like iron filings around a sudden magnetic field. Some bonds will crumble, others will ignite with newfound strength. Each outcome is a message in Jung's private alphabet waiting for you to decode. Notice the paradox? By stepping back, you step into sharper relief. Your silence becomes a thunderclap, your absence a fingerprint on every moment you skip. Listeners who stay will ache for the missing note, hunting for resolution in the space between beats. This tension is no accident. It is the narrative loop that knots the mind, compelling it to seek closure. Every second you remain slightly out of reach deepens the craving to bridge that gap, just as Carnegie's most persuasive words always dangled one final promise beyond immediate grasp. So linger at the threshold where anticipation hums like charged wire, and let the unanswered question bloom. What transformation unfolds when you finally choose to be scarce? Hold that thought, because in the next breaths, we will trace the hidden mechanics behind this seismic shift, revealing why, the moment you stop being perpetually available, everything and everyone must change. Miss even a heartbeat, and you may never piece together the full design that is already shaping your fate. Do you recall the first time you learned that silence could speak louder than a shout? Perhaps it was a childhood evening when you slipped behind a half-closed door and discovered the world continued without your commentary. Yet every muffled footstep suddenly mattered more because you were no longer part of the noise. In that hush, a primitive electricity crackled, an intuition that presence is powerful, but absence is radioactive. Most of us buried that lesson beneath years of people-pleasing, yet it remains pulsing like an ember under ash, waiting for the moment you decide to withhold your spark. Consider the mask you crafted to survive the corridors of school, work, romance. Jung called it the persona, your curated smile, your obedient nod, your perpetual availability. Day after day, you polish that mask until it feels like skin, then wonder why your nerves are frayed. But the instant you slip it off, even for a breath, the air changes temperature. Friends lean in, confused. Colleagues recalibrate. The room senses an unfamiliar gravitational field forming where your compliance used to orbit. It is not arrogance. It is the raw outline of your unfiltered, self-demanding space. Notice how quickly stories sprout in the gaps you leave. A missed message becomes a rumor. An unanswered invitation mutates into a myth. Human minds are narrative engines that cannot bear a vacuum, so they rush to fill it with conjecture. This is not cruelty, it is biology. Dale Carnegie teaches us that people crave significance. Jung reveals that they project that craving onto any void. By stepping back, You hand each observer a mirror, forcing them to confront the neediness they once attributed to you. They will call you mysterious, distant, maybe even cold. But what they truly fear is their own reflection staring at them through your absence. The paradox deepens. The less you offer, the more precious each fragment becomes. A single word, once drowned in your constant chatter, now lands like a meteorite on a quiet plain. A brief smile becomes a negotiated treaty between hearts. You begin to see economics in emotion, supply and demand translated into pulse and breath. Where there is scarcity, value multiplies. Where there is surplus, appreciation decays. This principle governs markets, ecosystems, and yes, the fragile commerce of human connection. Withdraw tactically, and you mint new currency in the eyes of everyone who thought they had you pegged. Yet withdrawal is not a retreat, it is an initiation. Imagine descending a spiral staircase lit only by the faint glow of memory. Each step strips away an expectation you once accepted without question. You feel lighter, but the air grows denser with possibility. Voices echo above, urging you to return to the familiar banquet of obligations. Instead, you continue downward, hearing your heartbeat sync with an older drum, a rhythm deeper than habit, an ancestral pulse that guided monks to deserts and warriors to solitary vigils. You realize you are reclaiming rituals of absence that terrified less courageous souls. Somewhere along that descent, the shadow appears. It is everything you suppressed to play the agreeable role. Anger you swallowed with a smile, dreams you shelved to avoid ridicule, instincts dulled by politeness. Locked away too long, the shadow smolders, impatient. Do not panic. Jung assures us that integration, not exile, brings wholeness. Engage the shadow like an estranged sibling, invite it to sit beside you in the silence. Feel the uneasy alliance forming, light and dark, civility and wildness, Carnegie's tact and laced with Jung's raw honesty. Together they forge a presence that can afford to disappear, because it no longer fears being forgotten. Now picture returning to the surface, carrying that fused authority. You speak less, but every syllable resonates with subterranean depth. People sense the difference without comprehension. They merely feel a low vibration under your words, like distant thunder signaling a shift in weather. Some step closer, drawn by the promise of hidden valleys. Others step back, unnerved by the storm they fail to predict. Both reactions are gifts, for each one reveals who is nourished by your evolution and who was merely grazing on your compliance. With each interaction, you test new boundaries. You allow interruptions to expire on your voicemail. Let invitations simmer unanswered long enough to reveal whether they were genuine acknowledgments or casual afterthoughts. You discover that many requests crumble under the weight of their own impatience, while a devoted few endure, shining brighter through delay. In this crucible, authenticity distills itself from convenience, leaving you a circle of allies tempered by time and respect. Rejection. Once your silent terror becomes a filter through which clarity pours, there will be nights when the old conditioning resurges. Loneliness nips at your resolve, whispering that constant connection is safer than meaningful solitude. In those moments, remember the seed sprouting in the dark. Roots burrow first unseen before any green pierces daylight. Your apparent withdrawal is not death but germination. Trust the biology of metamorphosis. A caterpillar liquefies in its cocoon before wings take form. You are undergoing that same biochemical miracle in the theater of your psyche. Meanwhile, the world you stepped away from reorganizes around your absence. Colleagues who relied on your quick fixes learn new competencies. Friends who leaned on your open-ended listening discover fresh confidants, or occasionally the strength to listen to themselves. By refusing to be the perpetual solution, you become the catalyst for others to solve their own puzzles. This is leadership in its most subversive form. Carnegie's influence elevated by Jung's individuation, teaching through presence, and perhaps more profoundly through strategic non-presence. Do not mistake the ripples for the ocean. Some will applaud your newfound focus, yet secretly plot to pull you back into predictable patterns. Others will test you with urgent crises that smell suspiciously like the drama of yesterday, repackaged to hook your attention. Stay alert. Every attempt to reclaim your constant availability is an invitation to regress. Decline gracefully, or if necessary, with the unflinching calm that only inner alignment grants. Your refusal is not a wall, it is a doorway setting to precise conditions for entry. Gradually you notice a curious inversion. Time expands. Hours once devoured by obligatory replies stretch into wide landscapes of possibility. In that spaciousness, you rediscover dormant passions. Reading that lures you past midnight, walks that map, forgotten streets, ideas that surface like oracles from a quiet lake. Creativity thrives in the vacuum left by discarded obligations, flowering in the fertile soil of your reclaimed attention. You begin to wonder whether you ever truly lived before carving these boundaries. Memory murmurs of past versions of yourself who begged for validation. They appear like ghosts at the edge of consciousness, pleading for the old routine of instant replies and perpetual smiles. Acknowledge them with compassion, then watch them fade, for they belong to a chapter you have outgrown. Their presence confirms the distance traveled, proof that transformation is not theoretical, but etched into your neural pathways. Each farewell to a former self becomes an opening for a deeper resonance with the present. There is an elegance in selective engagement. You answer when your inner compass aligns, decline when the request derails your trajectory. People label this confidence, mystery, perhaps even arrogance. Yet labels are thin fabric, a fluttering against the wind of your lived truth. Beneath them lies simple arithmetic. Energy is finite, meaning is priceless. You spend it where it multiplies, not where it evaporates. Those who grasp this arithmetic join you in an unspoken pact of mutual respect. Those who do not eventually drift toward mirrors more eager to comply. Tension remains the hidden conductor of this orchestra. Every pause, every deliberate lag between question and response vibrates like a tightened string. The audience leans forward unconsciously, anticipating the next note. You have learned to play silence the way a virtuoso manipulates resonance, allowing space so the previous chord can bloom fully before striking the next. This is the music of leadership without volume, collaboration without pursuit. It is the echo that fills the cathedral long after the choir has ceased singing. Inevitably, someone will accuse you of playing games. They will say you orchestrate scarcity, engineer mystique. Smile gently, for they see only tactics, not the tectonic plates shifting beneath. What appears calculated is, in truth, the natural equilibrium that emerges when self-respect aligns with psychological law. You are not crafting illusions. You are dismantling the grand illusion that you must always be on call to earn belonging. By existing on your own terms, you invite others to renegotiate theirs. Observe, too, the subtle liberation in those around you. When you model boundaries, you grant implicit permission for them to craft their own. The friend who once apologized for needing a weekend offline now claims it proudly. The colleague who feared declining extra work begins to protect creative hours like sacred ground. Your individual stance becomes a collective awakening, spreading through social fabric like dye through water. Change, it seems, is contagious when embodied rather than preached. Yet freedom carries an austere beauty. It will not always feel warm. There are evenings when the phone stays silent, when you realize how many conversations depended on your immediate availability, not on mutual curiosity. Loneliness can bite, sharp as winter air, teaching you to differentiate between genuine companionship and background chatter. Accept the chill. It tempers you, forging resilience. In that stillness, you meet yourself in fullness, discovering that self-company need not be a consolation prize, but a competent, even dazzling ally. At times, memory will drift to moments when you were the rescuer, the fixer, the emotional paramedic racing into other people's fires. You might catch the faint scent of nostalgia for those adrenaline highs. Breathe it in, then exhale. Compassion is still your engine, but now it runs on choice, not compulsion. You reserve your interventions for fires where your presence truly alters the outcome, not for sparks that others must learn to tame themselves. This discriminating mercy magnifies impact, conserving strength for battles worthy of your scars. The old world of constant connectivity once promised belonging, yet often delivered only dilution. Now you sip interaction like aged wine, tasting notes you missed when gulps were the norm. Laughter rings clearer, advice carries weight, gratitude gains dimension. Relationships become fewer but thicker, like ancient trees whose intertwined roots promise longevity over quick shade. In pruning the forest of acquaintances, you grant each remaining tree room to expand its canopy. Even conflict evolves. Criticism no longer detonates at your feet. It hovers in the air, awaiting your decision to engage. You weigh it, decide whether it serves growth, then either absorb the lesson or let the arrow fall harmlessly to earth. This calm curation of feedback mystifies detractors who once fed on your immediate defensiveness. By mastering reaction time, you rewrite the choreography of confrontation, transforming potential drama into collected dialogue or dignified silence. Your calendar, once a battlefield of overlapping commitments, now resembles a curated gallery. Each appointment is a deliberate brushstroke on the canvas of your week. Blank spaces remain untouched, zones of potential where spontaneous brilliance may emerge. The mind, relieved of constant siege, begins to meander, explore, synthesize. Ideas converge from disparate corners, forming constellations that light the path ahead. Scarcity of schedule incubates abundance of insight. With heightened awareness comes heightened responsibility. You see more clearly how your withdrawal recalibrates group dynamics. When you speak, your words can steer entire projects, sway silent opinions. Use that leverage with kindness. Power wielded without empathy corrodes faster than iron in salt air. Carnegie's enduring lesson echoes, genuine interest in others is not a tactic, but a philosophy. Merge that warmth with Jung's depth, and you become both anchor and sail, steady yet propelling. Stranger still, strangers notice. People who barely know your name register the quiet gravity you carry. They ask how you remain composed amid chaos, how you appear engaged yet unhurried. Some seek formulas, thinking a productivity hack fuels your poise. Share principles if you wish, but remember that the essence cannot be downloaded. It must be lived. Their curiosity, however, confirms that your silent transformation emits waves detectable beyond familiar shores. Every so often, doubt whispers, have you isolated yourself beyond recall? In those instants, picture the tide. It recedes not to abandon the shore, but to gather strength for the next surge. Your temporary distance accumulates potential, energy to crash forward with renewed vigor when the moment demands. Withdrawal and return are phases of the same heartbeat. Knowing when to pulse outward is the companion art to knowing when to contract. A curious serenity settles in your chest. You find you can watch life unfold without the reflex to insert yourself into every frame. Like a seasoned editor, you cut scenes that do not serve the plot of your becoming. Far from detachment, this is devotion to a narrative worth telling, a story where presence is intentional, absence is strategic, and both are authored by the self rather than the swarm. Old acquaintances resurface, intrigued by whispers of your evolution. Some approach with reverence, others with skepticism, a few with envy thinly veiled as a concern. Welcome authenticity. Set polite boundaries against what reeks of entitlement or voyeurism. Each encounter is another test of your alignment, an opportunity to practice the art of selective transparency. Reveal only what nourishes both giver and receiver. Veil the rest in dignified quiet. The deeper you inhabit this rhythm, the clearer the architecture of reciprocity becomes. You sense when conversations feed both souls and when they siphon. You notice which commitments expand collective potential and which merely postpone someone else's responsibility. Decision-making sharpens to a blade, cutting away the vines that once strangled your momentum. Clarity is no longer a mood, but a native environment. In the rare moments you do choose to inundate someone with your full attention, the force is astonishing. Listeners describe feeling seen in a way they never expected, as though a spotlight of sincerity has swung onto their hidden stage. That intensity is possible only because attention is no longer diffused across countless trivialities. You have become a lighthouse whose beam slices the night in deliberate sweeps, guiding ships precisely because it does not shine everywhere at once. Yet within this newfound potency lurks a final seduction, overconfidence. You may be tempted to wield scarcity as vanity, to toy with admiration like a cat with fading prey. Resist. The principle that grants influence also demands humility. Power rooted in ego rots quickly. Power anchored in purpose endures. Keep the compass fixed on service, and scarcity remains a clarifying lens rather than a distorting mirror. As days unfold, you recognize that every boundary you draw outside mirrors a threshold you crossed internally. The journey was never about training others. It was about retrieving fragmented parts of yourself scattered through years of compulsory yeses. Collect those fragments tenderly. Assemble them into a mosaic that reflects light in unexpected angles, reminding you that wholeness is not homogeneity, but harmonious diversity within. Finally, you sense a horizon approaching, a culmination where the lessons of absence prepare to blossom into a revelation of presence. Something vast stirs beyond language, as if all the tension, silence, and selective speech were assembling into one seismic declaration. You feel it gathering behind the curtain, waiting for the exact moment to step into view. The air thickens with portent, and even the ticking clock seems to hesitate, as though it too anticipates the unveiling yet to come. Listen now to the hush we have woven together, an afterglow of withheld smiles and deliberate silences humming like low thunder beneath your ribs. Every boundary you drew, every breath you reclaimed, now forms a constellation of invisible lines that redraw the very sky above you. Feel how the world tilts differently when you lean back instead of forward, how the air keeps the shape of your absence like sand, remembering a vanished footprint. In that imprint lies proof that you can rewrite gravity itself by choosing where not to stand. Carry this knowledge as a secret ember. Presence burns brightest when tended by thoughtful distance. Let the persona rest. Welcome the shadow to your fireside, and watch the sparks of integrated selfhood rise into night's dark cathedral. Ask yourself, in moments of quiet, what would happen if you guarded your attention as fiercely as your heartbeat? Recall this phrase: when doubt returns, the space you protect becomes the sanctuary that transforms you. Whisper it until the walls of your routine begin to breathe and flex, making room for versions of you that have yet to speak. If this resonance found its echo in your own silent chambers, let the ripple travel onward. Tap the thumbs up to signal your accord. Spill your fresh insight in the comments. Share this pulse with a friend starved for stillness. And subscribe to Stand with Those Choosing Depth Over Noise. This is not a farewell. It is an open door behind a closed one. Step through and let the quiet become your loudest revolution.